welcome to part 3 of my tutorial. It's been a while now since I did the first two parts, and I did colour what you now will see a month back, but I went on holiday and didn't have the proper equipment to do any recording when I was there. So, but here it comes, better late than never. As you can see, a part of the neck is already done, so I did this before I started recording, and this was because I started on the neck a bit when I was doing the face, and I went way too dark. I had it completely black at the top part of the neck, and that looked terrible, so I had to go over and erase it, and I just had to fix it as much as I could. I should have done that with the camera, but I didn't. So I will let it go now in real time for a little while, just so that you can see what I've done. So it looks a bit greyish right under the chin, but it's because I went too dark and I tried to lighten it, but with white paper I can't really go, I can't erase it all. But anyway, it's supposed to be, you know, a bit darker right under the chin. And then you can see, like, in the middle of the neck there's like a lighter part, and that's because that part of the neck is sticking out a bit more. And then I've just put a little bit of shadow, but it's kind of like only the middle part that I had done previously. As this is the first tutorial I've ever done, this image, I just hope that you will allow me to make a few mistakes. But I will learn from them and I won't do them again, so on the next one I'll make sure to have the camera on at all times, and I can just, you know, edit it afterwards. As you can see, the lighting is a bit different on this compared to the two first ones. So here I try to set up a little camera station in my now little colouring studio, but I have a very bright light shining down, so you can see how bad it looks at the very top of the hair, and I don't think I'll do this in the future, because when I had such strong or bright light on it, I could hardly see what I was doing when I was colouring because it was too bright. So now, today, when I took the colouring out, I can see in daylight that especially the hand, that the shading wasn't done really very well. Also, with this light she looks much paler than she really is on the original image, but I think maybe it will show later. So I have a tendency of going a bit overboard when it comes to how I colour the neck. So I put maybe too much shadow and too much highlights, and making it a bit more defined than what it needs to be. With this one there is already a line there on the neck, so and that's black, so I kind of have to make it more defined than I would like to, and this is because I am colouring on white paper. I can't really hide that line. Okay, so I think it's time to speed up the rest of the neck colouring now. I'm never really entirely sure where all the highlights and where all the shadows should go, and I think that is the reason why you can see that I colour a bit all over the place, but it's just to kind of for me to get like a better big glance at the picture to see if does this look right or not. On the right side of the neck you can see that there are highlights and shadows, and why I decided to do that was I took a picture of myself or my neck in that, or trying to have that exact position, and then I just look at how the light hits my neck, and based on that I decide how I will try and do it on my colouring. I do this quite often because I'm not that experienced yet, so I don't automatically know. Maybe for the face it's a bit easier, but for neck and hands and stuff like that I do need a reference, and I find it hard to find or really I don't ever find that I have time to go online and try and look for a reference photo in that exact position. So I always find it very helpful to just take a selfie and maybe turn up the contrast to see more clearly where shadows and highlights are. In this video, I have only added the description of what pencils I'm using at the beginning of the video. It's really the same that I use for the face. I'm just not using the Pompeian red and the blue here. But I haven't added it underneath as I'm colouring, and the reason for this is that I'm changing the pencils quite a bit, or quite often. But I'll try to explain as I go on how I'm doing this. So my technique or my method on how I do a colouring varies from time to time. On this one, I've started with placing the shadows where I think I know there's going to be shadow, and I use the second darkest, so the burnt sienna pencil for this. So I've placed the shadow, as I said, under the chin, obviously, and also like on top or behind the collarbone. So the collarbones themselves are quite light, but behind them, if that makes sense, it's darker. And also like the skin closest to the shirt is darker. And then I've used the cinnamon pencil to try and blend it in. And when I see that the shadow looks okay, then I might go a little bit darker and maybe tone down the light a little bit. I find it a little bit difficult to explain how to colour the neck and chest, and I think part of it is that like there's so many of the features that I don't really know the English word for. So like those two kind of white lines or whatever coming down from the neck, I don't know what it's called in English. So I think the best thing is just, you know, see what I've done. Maybe you can try as well taking a picture of your own neck when you're colouring neck and see if that helps you with figuring out how to place the light. So as you probably can see, I've gone on, so I think that I'm done with the neck probably quite a while ago, and I've started with the hand. Hands can be quite difficult, and especially this one. I really struggle with figuring out how to get it right, especially the pointy finger. There's something a bit odd with it, so it was very difficult, but I am trying, doing whatever seems logical. I don't think I was entirely happy with the hand in the end. So although I haven't really been able, I feel, to explain very well how I do the neck and hand, I hope by watching this that you've still gotten some ideas on maybe a good way of doing it. Okay, so I've moved onto the frame now, which I will try to make look a bit like gold. I find that I'm able to make it look quite goldish on the tanned or the grey paper. It proved not to be as easy on white paper. So here I'm using marker as base. I start with quite a light marker, I go over with a yellow and then a more brownish one on top on the darkest places. Of course you can do this just by pencil, but I find that I save time if I add the markers first and then I just go over with pencil afterwards. So this part of the video I've sped up quite a bit, as it would be quite boring to watch it in real time or even close to that. I'm afraid I can't entirely remember the pencils that I'm using on top of this. Afterwards I can see that I'm using the two darkest colours that I use for the skin, so that will be the burnt sienna and the carpet mortem pencil, but I'm also using like a light yellow pencil and white, of course, but I find that for every time I do color gold, I just take the brown and yellow pencils I have available, and sometimes it works better than others. Again, I'm very sorry if this video seems a bit messy and unorganized, but it really is because I did the recording such a long time ago and I meant to get it all out before I went on holiday, but I just didn't have the time. I brought my stuff with me because I had a little bit left to do, but the lighting was just horrible, so I just couldn't do anything. I'll be much more structured in the future, and once I'm done with this now, I'm going to start editing one that I did yesterday. So I will have that fresh in memory, and hopefully the next video will be a bit better. So I'm only doing half of the frame now, as it's quite big and it takes a bit of time. But normally, so just in general, when I do gold, I use some brown colours. I like having one with a little bit of red in. I use a light yellow, and obviously I always have the white, always white. But another thing that I didn't do here that can be quite good is to add a bit of blue to the darkest part of the gold. I'm going over with the white now to just try and get the lighter part a little bit lighter than they are. But as I've said so many times now, it's a little bit difficult on the white paper, especially on the smooth paper. So that's why I'm here going over with my white Sharpie to try and highlight some of those areas a bit more. So I'm almost done with the frame now, or half of the frame. I decided to just do the other part later when I'm not filming. You can probably see that the light is changing. Like now you can see that the part of the neck is almost like a bit of a golden colour. But I think it is the sun coming through the window giving it a weird colour. Anyway, so now I've started on the background. There's a little bit of background inside the frame that does not contain flower, and I just decided to make that black. I think that's easiest. So the next thing I'm going to do now is the flowers, and I've decided to make them turquoise. And here again, to save time and because I find it easier, I start with markers. So I put down the lightest marker first, and then I go over with a darker one. And I add the darkest one. As it's roses, it will be like closest to the center, it will be darker. I normally don't like doing flowers, but roses I don't really mind. I think it's part because I find it quite easy to see where you have to put the highlights and the shadow. And I don't know, it's just something a bit satisfying with colouring roses, I think. So after I've coloured it with marker first, I will start with adding the white highlights with the white pencil. And then I will use a dark turquoise or a black even at the darkest area. And again here I'm managing to sometimes colour outside the camera, but I think that's just how it is being a novice, and hopefully this will also get better over time. So that's about it for the rose. I have, after I coloured this, after I did all the other ones, I did add some white, like Posca or Sharpie, to the lightest parts. So we've come to the last part now that I'm going to show you. I was going to show you how I did the shirt as well, but that video is mysteriously gone somehow. Anyway, so I wanted to try and make the leaves golden, So I'm using the same markers as I used for the frame, a very light beige and a light brown on top. And then I start going over with pencil the yellow, cinnamon and the carpet mortem, trying to get the same type of shadow and highlight, but it proves to be difficult. As some of the leaves are very small, I found that they kind of disappeared, especially the leaves in the hair, and that's why I decided I need to just put a white pen around it to make them pop out a bit. So again, I just have to apologize for this unstructured and maybe a bit messy video, but I promise I'll be better in the future. Yeah, so that's it for now. I will start on my next video very soon, so see you then. Bye!